answer it, sloth.
Alright, hello, my name is Drake, or Sloth, depending on how you know me, and today I'm going to do something that I've been wanting to do for a while, which is an album review. I mentioned it earlier in the year that I was going to do one, however I didn't get across to doing it on that album, so we're going to do one now. So this one that I'm doing is the debut album of Oliver Tree, called Ugly is Beautiful. So after 5 years in the making and a delay due to COVID, Oliver Tree takes us on this really weird, trippy, yet catchy journey with his new album, and which, once you look into it, it's actually very relatable and catchy, or relatable and emotional, and it's very interesting. So I will go through track by track on what how I felt about the tracks and let you know how I feel. So the first track on it was Me, Myself, and I. The track overall, I didn't really feel too opinionated on either way. Whenever I listened to it, it kind of reminded me, like the intro kind of reminded me of something that you would hear in like the beginning of like a raunchy high school, movie kind of thing, almost like American Pie or anything like that. It also had a really good breakdown towards the end of it as well. I felt like that it, the beat really hit really well, and then it slowed down to a really nice breakdown. So the second track is a track called 1993. It is I was curious about it, so I did look it up, and 1993 is actually the year that Oliver Tree was born. Just kind of a little fun fact from there. The song itself was very catchy, and it also kind of reminded me of something that you would hear at like a high school dance, kind of like people, jumping up and down, just having a good time in their dresses and tuxedos and stuff. Not really sure why that was what I thought of it when I listened to it, but that was my initial thought on it, so figured I'd mention it. Also, I don't really feel opinionated on it either one way or the other as well. It was a decent track as it was, but it really wasn't a standout in my opinion. So third on it is actually one that was one of his singles before he released it, called Cash Machine. I really did like that track whenever it first initially came out, and I still do. I think it is catchy, just sarcastic, and just lyrically smart altogether. In it, he talks about kind of just the culture of being materialistic and stuff, and rapping and music in general, and kind of just life. And he's very, again, sarcastic and kind of just almost calls people out with how they are with things. One of my favorite lines of the entire album was one on this, which is smile, show your golden teeth, referring to like I don't even know what those are called, but word right there what it is. And he says, smile, show your golden teeth, use them to cover up your cavities, kind of thing. Use grills, that's what it is. Remembered. Gosh, I'm stupid. Anyways, use the grills to like cover up your natural bad teeth and stuff, and I thought that was kind of funny. And throughout the whole song, he kind of touches on that. Throughout the whole album, he talks about just kind of his distaste with how the music industry is altogether, and materialism, and just kind of like just not letting people live the life that they want to kind of attitude. It's interesting, to say the least. So the next one is called Let Me Down. This track, I didn't really know much about it, but whenever I was listening to it on Spotify, they had like a little timeline thing of comments that Oliver made himself about each track. And on this one, he talked about how this one was one that was made due to the COVID situation. So, like I said earlier, his track, I believe this album was supposed to come out in March. However, due to COVID, he had to delay it, and that was something that really frustrated him. So he made this track as a way of like he said he used it as a way to apologize to his fans and stuff. And in the song, it's kind of like a third person perspective of like the fans speaking to him about like, oh, please don't let me down, please deliver, things like that. And then at the end, he's like, I will deliver, things like that. And that was really odd. I mean, the song, whenever you listen to it on, first basis with no context, it's very generic, very typical, not really much thought about it, but whenever you listen to it in the context of what he said, it's actually very emotional, actually really sad in my opinion, and it's a decent track as it is. So next up is my one of my favorites, one of my really big favorites of Oliver Tree in general. It's one called Miracle Man. This was one I believe was released back in like 2018, 2017 even, on his Alien Boy EP, which I thought was kind of interesting that he added this along with two other tracks that were on that EP on this. The song is just amazing in general. The context of the song is about, don't wait on just a miracle to happen. If you want something, you got to go out and you got to go get it yourself kind of situation. And that's personally a philosophy that I kind of just believe in myself in general. I think that's kind of, if you want something done, you got to do it yourself. You can't just sit there and be like, oh, I got to get this, I got to do that, blah, 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 blah. You just got to go out and you got to do it. And this song talks about that it's very catchy, very melodic, and it's just, in my opinion, just one of his greatest tracks to ever be released. I think, again, it being added onto the album was a little odd, but we'll get more into the context of that later. So track number 6 is one called Bury Me Alive. It is one that, in it, he talked about how he went on a family trip to Burning Man, I believe is what he said, and he took a bunch of acid, and he thought he was going to die. He thought he was going to OD, and in his crazy drug trip, he saw his dead, like he was dead, and he saw his family looking over him and crying, and he actually thought he did die. However, he didn't, luckily, and he wrote this song as inspiration from it. The song itself is a very aggressive one, and one that kind of has a very an attitude of like a 90s, early 2000s rapper kind of attitude, very, I would say very influenced by maybe like even the Wu-Tang Clan and things like that. Very just old school, I guess you'd say. Next up is track number 2 from the Alien Boy EP, which would be the title track, Alien Boy. This one is also another one of my favorites by him. I think it's very catchy, very easy to sing along to, and just very soft on the ears as well. It's not aggressive, it's very mellow and very easy to listen to as far as hip-hop goes, and just Oliver Tree in general. The song, he said, was inspired by just kind of like all like Alien Boy and Alien Girls is what he says. Like, this goes out to all the alien boys and alien girls, I think kind of referring to just the weird people that are out there. And there's really no other context behind this song. However, it is beautifully written. It's a very good track, and one that I would recommend to people who want to listen to just different hip-hop songs in general. So the next track is one, it was the most, I think in my opinion, the one that stood out the most as one that didn't, that was initially released with this album just today. It is called Joke's on You. It's a very morbid track. However, it is also very catchy, and again, it's very aggressive. It's a very aggressive, emotional one. It's kind of just referring to an idea that he had was that, just kind of like he asked, have you ever felt like your life's a joke? You just kind of wake up and you just kind of like nothing's going on, and things like that. And that's kind of what the context of the song is. And I think it's again like the best standout one involving the ones that came out with this album. The best, I guess you would refer to as like a B-side track. Other than that, there's really not much else to say about it. It's very enjoyable, and I recommend to go check it out. All right, so track number 9 is a song called Again and Again. This is one that I feel is very relatable, and it has a really good message and just kind of emotional in general. The theme behind the song is that we all, all us as humans kind of are a victim to behavior and our patterns and, things like that. And just kind of like we follow our own patterns that we live by, and it's really hard to get out of those for good or for bad. He comments on such as like, drug addicts, not necessarily a good pattern to fall under, where like if you were a musician who's putting out good music and you were, writing songs, got in the habit of writing songs and stuff, that would be one that you could necessarily call as good. I think people who probably write songs would argue with me on that one, but it just kind of seems like, just kind of like a hand-in-hand kind of thing. I guess Exercise would probably be a better example. But it's a very catchy song, and it was one that had a very notable, I felt like, guitar that helped progress the song. And again, it's a really good one. I'd say it's another one of the best ones on the album as well. All right, so track number 10 is one called "Waste My Time." The title is very, just you can easily tell what the song's about. Don't waste his time, I won't waste your time, kind of thing. However, kind of thought that the lyrics were a little hard to understand. It was a very odd song as well. I didn't really feel too opinionated on it one way or the other. However, I would say it is one of the lackluster ones, one of the weaker tracks of the album. But yeah, again, just kind of odd, and didn't really think too strongly about it. All right, this is a really long album. The next one is track 11. It's one called "Jerk." I feel like it was one that had a really good approach to the mentality of fuck the haters kind of thing. I feel like a lot of people, whenever they do those songs about like, oh, I don't care about what you think, fuck you, fuck that kind of thing, it's always very forefront, not very smart with its words or anything like that. I feel like this one did have that. It was a different approach that I actually really liked. I really liked the bass in it as well. It had a very nice like beat bass to it that had really good. Whenever I listen to it, I use Crusher, Skull Candy Crushers, which have like a nice little bass flip to it. This is one that you'd want to turn that up with if you have that option. And also had a really good build up. I like songs that have like a nice like kind of like do one of these and then kind of like at the end do like a big upcline like that. And this song was one that did that and had a really nice little explosion at the end whenever it finished off. The next track is one called "Introspective." Whenever I wouldn't really know exactly what this one was about unless I looked at the timeline that Spotify gave me. So apparently this one was about how it's kind of like your mind races and you have like these different thoughts every minute kind of situation. I think people who have like anxiety or depression could kind of really relate to it a lot better. However, I'm pretty sure it's just a very common human theme to have with your mind racing. Honestly, I felt like it was, even though it is very relatable in its context, I felt like that it was also rather vague and very hard to follow kind of situation. I would say this one is also one that's like one of the weaker points of the album. I'd probably say, in my opinion, the weakest track of this album. However, I wouldn't say it's like a terrible song, to be honest with you. It's just very mediocre. Just wouldn't give it a second thought kind of attitude towards it. All right, final song on this last album of Oliver Tree. It's called "I'm Gone." So the track itself, I think is very good in the context of it being the final track of the album. As an outro, it's very good as an outro, obviously with the title of "I'm Gone," that's obviously what you're going to want to finish on. And he just pretty much says he's done, wrap it up, curtains done, curtains fall, everything's done, he's not doing anything anymore, and he's out. The song itself was very catchy. However, other than that, it wasn't I wouldn't say it was a strong one either. I think it's only good in the context of it being an outro and being the final one of the album. So in an album sense, I think it's good. However, I also like looking at these tracks as just standalone as well, and just kind of if they can stand on their own feet. This one I wouldn't necessarily say would. But if you listen to the whole album, I do recommend you listening. If you're going to listen to it, listen to the album from the first one to the bottom in that order. That's how he said you should do it. I would recommend it as well. And yeah, I think with that you would appreciate the song a lot better. But if you're going to do it on shuffle and just kind of like listen to them piece by piece, it wouldn't have the same kind of attitude. Wouldn't have the same feeling that it would. So a big theme in this album that Oliver Tree really punched home in promotion for it and for in the album in general was that this was his first last one. He's done with music. He's not doing anything anymore. He even described this as like his greatest hits album, essentially, which is kind of the context of why you would see songs like Hurt, Alien Boy and Miracle Man in it, because it's like his best of what he's put out to date. And that's why he says he also took 5 years to make as well. So he says he's done. It seems like that he's sick and tired and burnt out of the music scene. He didn't really like how executives and stuff hindered him and what he's able to do. Honestly, it doesn't seem like he's alone in this either. A lot of other musicians seem like that they're also done with it. Some perfect examples I would say would be like Post Malone with his Bleeding Hollywood album, talking about how he hates the LA scene and the music scene. There's a lot of fake people involved, this and that. And another one that I also would like to mention would also be I Don't Know How But They Found Me. I saw that Dallin Weeks was answering questions about their debut album, and between his EP, the EP, and the album, they moved out of LA and back to Salt Lake City, Utah, which is where they're originally from, because they didn't like it either, and that was also something that they were going to touch on in the album. You kind of see that they already did that with their EP with songs like Do It All the Time and Social Climb, but yeah, it doesn't seem like he's really all that by himself in that kind of mentality. Honestly, I don't know if Oliver Tree is all that serious about leaving. I do think I would understand in that context of why he'd want to move on and stuff. He says he wants to go on to bigger, better projects kind of thing, but I don't really know how serious he is. He did mention something about going, there was like an outro video in the Spotify one, and he said something about going solo. I don't really know if he's just kind of messing around because he was a solo act, or if he's like hinting at some kind of like weird loophole that he's trying to pull or something. But if he does leave, honestly, that would be it'd be a shame, and we would be missing a lot of what he could do in the future. So my final thoughts and overall just kind of final opinions on the album is that I think it was very catchy. I think as far as songs that you could easily jam out to, this one is one that you could do that to. However, there are a little bit of mediocrity and generic sounds that you hear in it that kind of, I would say, tilts it towards the it's like lower ends of it. Overall, I'd say I give it a 6.5 out of 10. One that definitely has a lot of tracks that I would go back to. I'll put in the description my favorite tracks and my least favorite tracks of what I thought on it. If you'd like, go check it out. I'll also link the album to it as well. And yeah, just go ahead and check it out. So anyways, yeah, that is my first album review of ever. I hope that I have a lot of other ones. There's a lot of other albums that are out right now, and plus ones that I am looking forward to in the future that I would like to make comment on. I hope you guys really liked it. If you'd like, let me know. Maybe there's something that you guys are interested in, you'd like me to comment on or anything like that. And yeah, I think that's all I really have to say. Anyways, yeah, thank you for watching. See ya.